In a world where despair is the only constant, Eyama Aito, a quiet, tormented student, whose every day is a nightmare. His life has become a daily ritual of pain, and his body has become a canvas for the violence inflicted by his ruthless bullies. Eyama's world shifts in ways that he never imagined when he is given the opportunity to turn the tables on his main bully, Aya Kirishima. For 1 month, he can hold her captive, and the only rule is that he cannot kill her to win a fortune. What will he do with this power? The story begins on an all-too-familiar day in the hell that is Eyama's school. The cold, filthy water of the school bathroom swirls around his face as his bully shoves his head into the toilet. Nearby, a girl laughs loudly, mocking Eyama's suffering in the bathroom while complaining about the odor. This has been Eyama's life for years, a life of constant abuse and humiliation. Even as he pleads for mercy, the bully sneers, insisting that this is fun and that Eyama secretly enjoys it. And then again his head is submerged, the water mingling with his blood. But the torment doesn't end there. The bully's rage continues, using a broom to beat Eyama mercilessly, while another girl watches sadistically. As the final act of cruelty, they kick him in the face, leaving him helpless on the dirty floor. Blood and toilet water mix beneath him as his bullies express a sick liking of his bruised appearance before deciding to leave due to the smell and bloody mess. As Eyama was suffering from pain and shame, they ordered him to clean up. In this moment of utter defeat, Eyama's mind spirals, thinking about how his situation is irrational. But somehow, despite the agony, Eyama forced himself to stand. He stares at his reflection in the mirror, the bruises and blood distorting his once normal face. In the mirror, he says that he should start carrying a towel to clean himself after these daily beatings. The sink water drips from his head onto his hand, and in that moment, he wishes for death, seeing himself as nothing more than weak, useless, and worthless. Returning to the classroom, Eyama notices it's already 6 p.m. The school is closing, yet something catches his eye. His desk, defaced with vicious threats and insults. This isn't the first time his desk has been vandalized, so he is numb to it. He comforts himself with the thought that summer break is near, so he won't be bullied anymore. Then suddenly, a girl enters the room and her presence is immediately unsettling. She asks, seemingly innocently, why Eyama was still at school, and if he cleaned up the bathroom properly. But her innocent mask quickly drops, revealing a sinister smile. She taunts him, confident that no one would ever believe that she orders people to bully Eyama. Eyama's heart sinks as soon as he sees her, Aya Kirishima, the mastermind behind his suffering. His voice trembles as he blurts her name, but she only responds with disgust, demanding he not speak her name so casually. Kirishima boasts about her good grades and perfect reputation, claiming no one would suspect her of orchestrating the bullying. She sees herself as superior, viewing Eyama as nothing but trash. Then out of nowhere, she pulls out her phone, and what Eyama sees makes his blood run cold. A picture of one of his classmates, Imamura, naked and tied up on the floor. Kirishima explains how easily Imamura was lured in, desperate to fit in, and how she used his loneliness against him. She mocks Eyama, saying Imamura is just like him, pathetic and alone. And to make matters worse, she reveals how Imamura humiliated himself by stripping on command, laughing at his degradation. Kirishima knows she holds all the power. She could ruin anyone's life with a single lie. As she continues to belittle Eyama, she notices Eyama seems to have a calm demeanor that unnerves her. She snaps at him, demanding his attention, her voice laced with venom. Eyama, terrified, can only sweat in silence. Kirishima tries to convince Eyama that he deserves the torment because of what he supposedly did to her. But Eyama struggles to remember. But he knows deep down that he is the victim, not the villain, yet the fear of another beating keeps him from speaking out. Kirishima then leans towards him and reminds him that he is nothing more than her plaything, a stress reliever because of his weakness. Before she leaves, she chillingly promises to see him again after summer break. Alone in the empty classroom, Eyama stands frozen, a mixture of fear and rage boiling inside him. In his desperation, Kirishima to disappear. Later, at home by himself, Eyama finds a letter addressed to him from someone named Kojima, a name he doesn't recognize. The letter speaks of a captivity game, inviting Eyama to participate to give him the chance to change his irrational life forever. At first, he thinks it's just another cruel prank by Kirishima and her friends, but his curiosity gets the better of him. In his room, he reads the rules of the game. The game lasts 1 month, during which he can hold only one person captive and do whatever he wants to them, as long as he doesn't kill them. Though he remains skeptical, he keeps reading the game rules. The name of the game is called What's My Name, and every week for a month, the captive gets one chance to guess the identity of their captor, and the captor has to make sure they don't reveal their name to the captive. If the captive guesses correctly, they win 10 million yen. If they fail to guess correctly, the captor wins the 10 million yen prize. Eyama chuckles and mocks the game, still believing Kirishima is behind this twisted joke. But the thought of not being bullied temporarily is enough to bring him some peace. Soon he drifts off to sleep, but his dreams are anything but peaceful. In his sleep, Kirishima haunts him. He sees her standing over him, holding a hammer with a terrifying grin on her face. He asks her why she is in his room, and she explains that she wants to use the hammer on him, and before he can react, she swings and bashes his face in. At that moment, Eyama wakes up in a cold sweat, with terror and confusion still lingering. The trauma of Kirishima invades his thoughts once again. Kirishima's voice echoes in his ears, reminding him that he is nothing but her toy. Driven to the brink, Eyama decides he can't take it anymore. He looks at the letter again, realizing that if he chooses Kirishima as his captive, this could be his chance to end his suffering once and for all. In the letter, he is shocked to see that the game went as far as setting up a registration site. Although he is still convinced it is a trap, he types Aya Kirishima's name into the registration, and suddenly a picture of her appears. A surge of shock and confusion rises within him once he sees Kirishima's picture, and he once again questions the game's legitimacy. The next day, Eyama gets a message telling him to meet someone at a certain spot at 10 o'clock. He heads to the park where they're supposed to meet and realizes he's a bit early. As he waits, he starts feeling nervous, wondering why they picked this park. His mind wanders, thinking about the person he's going to meet. If it's a scary-looking person, he will just walk away and go home. While lost in thought, a man approaches Eyama from behind and greets him. This startled Eyama. The man then asked if Eyama was the one he was supposed to meet, but Eyama was too intimidated to respond. As the man kept walking closer, Eyama notices he's dressed in an expensive all-black suit with dark sunglasses. The man looks serious, like someone important and powerful. Each step he took made Eyama more nervous. But then, just when the tension is at its peak, the man suddenly trips over something. He stumbles and grabs his leg in pain, crouching down. All of a sudden, the intimidating vibe is gone. When the man finally got to Eyama, he turned into an embarrassed mess, quickly apologizing over and over for being clumsy. He awkwardly scratched his head, relieved that he had found Eyama since he believes all high schoolers look the same. As they headed toward the man's car, the man wondered if Eyama had read all the rules for the game. But before they could leave, Eyama wanted to know who the man was. The man then took off his black sunglasses and introduced himself as Harakawa, the person who will be taking care of Eyama for the next month during the Captivity Game. While driving, Harakawa wanted to make sure Eyama understood everything that was sent to him in the packet. His role is to guide and support Eyama, so he made it clear that he was available to answer any questions. Then, out of nowhere, Harakawa mentioned something important he had forgotten about: the eye mask in the back seat. Since the game's location was meant to remain a secret, Eyama needed to put it on immediately. In a seemingly friendly way, Harakawa warned Eyama that if he didn't wear the mask, he would be fined and disqualified from the game, so make sure the mask doesn't come off. Eyama did put on the mask, but he couldn't understand why he almost forgot something so important. Harakawa began commenting on how brave Eyama is, though Eyama wasn't sure why. Harakawa went on, pointing out the courage it took to join such a suspicious game, and even more brave for choosing his captive. Curiosity got the better of Harakawa as he wondered what Eyama planned to do with his captive, who happens to be the person that bullied Eyama. In the back seat, Eyama sat quietly and didn't respond. Harakawa, unfazed by the silence, everything depends on whether the captive can figure out Eyama's real identity. He made it clear that Eyama needs to be careful not to give away any hints that can help Kirishima discover his name. Then Harakawa's gaze and tone becomes unsettling. He points out that if he were the captive, the first person he would suspect as his captor would be the person he bullied. He then reminds Eyama that the name he entered in the game registration, Aya Kirishima, cannot be changed. Hearing this, Eyama was kind of upset that Harakawa didn't have faith in his ability to keep his identity a secret. Eyama is confident that there is no need to worry. Harakawa is surprised by Ayama's confidence, but Eyama believes Kirishima will figure out who he is because he hates her the most, and assumes she already knows that. As a result of that, Harakawa agrees that she will definitely find out his identity soon. Eyama then explains his plan. In 7 days, before Kirishima can identify him, he'll torture her so badly that she won't be able to speak. If she can't speak, she can't identify him and win. He promises to return twice the pain she's given him and destroy her completely, grinning at the thought of doing whatever he wants to her within the rules. Then, Harakawa awkwardly laughed and admired Eyama for thinking this game through, which makes Eyama more interesting in his eyes. Harakawa points out that there isn't anyone who wouldn't think this through because of the great risks and rewards. He realized Eyama wasn't the kind of person to take a game like this lightly. Sooner than later, they arrived at the game's destination. When in the building, Eyama took off his blindfold while anxiously following Harakawa as they made their way to Eyama's room. On the way to the room, Eyama couldn't help but wonder how many other participants were involved in the game. Harakawa reveals that 6 invitations were sent out, and he is curious about how many will actually show up. Harakawa then brought up the option for Eyama to speak with the other participants if he wanted to. When they arrived, Harakawa finishes the tour and tells Eyama he can use the phone in his room for any questions. Feeling uneasy, Eyama wonders where his captive is. Harakawa reveals that she's already here. To hide his identity when facing Kirishima, Harakawa gives him a face mask which he needs to wear when he is with her. Wearing the creepy mask, Eyama opens the door to where Kirishima is being held and sees her unconscious with her hands chained. Then shock hits him. It really is Kirishima. When she opens her eyes, she sees a masked figure standing silently in front of her, unaware that it's Eyama. He just stood there, staring at her without saying a word. Feeling nervous, Kirishima tries to ask who the man is, but she quickly notices her hands are chained. The sound of chains rattling fills the room until Eyama finally breaks it by greeting her. His voice startles Kirishima. Her fear quickly turned to anger. She demands to know who he is, what is happening, and if he thinks he can get away with this. But Eyama says nothing, just stares at her. Suddenly, Ayama's hand begins to shake, then tightens into a fist. Eyama believes Kirishima should know that he won't give her his name. As she listens to him speak, she realizes he's using a voice changer, making her wonder if it's to hide a voice she would recognize. Angry and disgusted, Kirishima thinks the masked man is a stalker holding her captive. Returning to her harsh ways, she insults him, calling him pitiful trash, annoying, and worthless, and demands he get away from her. Fed up with the yelling and insults, Eyama suddenly shouts at her to shut up. His loud voice startles her. In annoyance, he walks towards her and kneels down in front of her. Then Eyama stares at her, realizing she has no idea what's going on or why she's here. She anxiously waits for him to explain, but he stays silent for a moment. He wonders how to start explaining the situation since no one has told her about the game or her circumstances. He then decides to leave her in the room alone for a moment, promising to be right back. Kirishima puts her head down, still anxious about the situation as he closes the door, leaving her in complete darkness. Once Eyama steps out of the room, he quickly pulls off his mask, seeming like he struggled to breathe while it was on. Sweat drips profusely from his face, soaking his clothes. Then, Harakawa comes back while smoking a cigarette, curious about what Eyama is doing. Eyama explains that she doesn't know about the game, and he's unsure if he should explain it. Harakawa chuckles and confirms they need to make sure she knows the rules. Harakawa then hands Eyama a tablet and pen, instructing him to give them to Kirishima. There is an app on the tablet that will explain the game and its rules. Nervously, Eyama examines them. Noticing Eyama's sweat, Harakawa wonders if, despite his earlier confidence, he's actually afraid of Kirishima. Eyama, with full confidence, believes that in the room, he is in charge. A small smirk forms as the idea of getting revenge on Kirishima runs through his mind. Back in the room, the masked Eyama shows Kirishima the tablet. A cheerful girl in a bunny costume with a cute animal appears on the screen to explain the game. The game will last 1 month, and Kirishima's goal is simple. She must figure out the name of the person holding her captive. She will have 4 chances to guess. The bunny girl explains that Kirishima can guess a name at the end of each week. If she guesses right, she'll be freed and get 10 million yen, making the bunny girl playfully jealous. In shock, Kirishima can barely react. The cute animal then adds that captives cannot stop their captor from doing anything to them, a rule that seems a bit cruel. The bunny girl then chimes in, reassuring Kirishima that there are ways to make her 1-month experience less harsh. If Kirishima pays money to the game, she can receive special treatments. At first, the payment will be deferred, meaning she won't be charged yet. But if Kirishima wins the game, her captor will have to pay for all the special treatments she used. The special treatment options include things like water, 1 meal, bath time for 30 minutes, bathroom for 10 minutes, a towel, and having her shackles removed for 10 minutes. Kirishima bites her lip in frustration, then her anger erupts. Furious at Eyama for toying with her, she finds it absurd that she has to pay for basic needs. She yells again, demanding to be freed. Eyama forcefully grips Kirishima's hair, making her wince in pain. He makes it clear that she can only leave if she figures out his identity. He believes she's too stupid to do that. In his painful grip, Kirishima tries to guess who's behind the mask. She soon feels confident that finding his name will be easy, assuming it must be one of them. Noticing her confidence, Eyama wonders who she suspects. Eyama loosens his grip, and Kirishima's mind races through many possible names, including Eyama's name. She quickly realizes she has too many enemies to narrow it down easily. Eyama, full of rage, grips her hair tightly again and forcefully throws her to the ground. His anger boils over as he questions how many people she has brutally bullied, given how quickly she can list potential captors. Disgusted, he makes it clear how terrible she truly is. He reminds her that she has just 1 week to guess, urging her to think carefully if she wants to avoid the horrors ahead. He then adds that the person behind the mask might not even be someone she's bullied. With so many enemies in mind, it feels impossible for Kirishima to figure out who it is. Eyama coldly reminds her that the specialized treatments are still available, but warns of the debt that comes with using them. Kirishima, terrified, dreads the thought of burdening her family with extra debt from this game. Eyama twists the knife deeper, reminding her how upset her family would be if they knew she was a school bully. He then delivers the harshest blow, mentioning her sick mother, hitting her where it hurts most. Kirishima's eyes widens with terror as his words about her family, especially her sick mother, sink in. Her lips tremble as she tries to understand why he is doing this to her. Kirishima bursts out in anger, questioning if this is happening because of her family's debt. She wonders why this is only happening to her family, and angrily blames her father for their money problems. He sarcastically agrees that her father might be to blame. He even hints that he could be a debt collector after their unpaid bills. Eyama reminds her that the list of names of potential captors is getting longer. He brings up the special treatments she can use to make her stay easier, and explains how she can order them. He adds that if she needs to go to the bathroom, he will accompany her, invading her privacy. She wonders if he's just after the 10 million yen, but Eyama's goal is clear, to make her life a living hell. Here, he can do whatever, and no one will care. He lists what he could do. Break her arm, cut off her foot, reminding her he's in charge. Kirishima's eyes fill with terror as the severity of her situation fully sinks in. As Eyama approaches, his presence is overwhelming. He can tell she finally understands the danger she's in. Before she can say a word, he grabs her tightly by her shackled arms and begins dragging her away. Kirishima can only tremble as she's pulled into her nightmare. Eyama forces her to the ground, tightly gripping her chained hand. He reminds her he can do anything except kill her. That's the only rule. He contemplates where to begin, almost excited. Knowing it's just the first day, there's plenty of time for his cruel plans. Gripping her pinky, he threatens to break it. Fear floods Kirishima as she struggles to look behind her. She can't believe this is real. Before he can hurt her, Kirishima panics and begs him to stop, not once, but twice. Despite her fear, she still fights back, insulting him and saying there's something seriously wrong with him. Eyama is shocked by her words, because Kirishima has always done whatever she wanted without facing any consequences. Her accusing him of being the one with issues strikes a nerve. Anger surges through Eyama as he struggles to grasp how, after everything she's done, Kirishima still thinks she can escape without consequences. Her selfishness only fuels his rage. Meanwhile, Kirishima's mind races, desperately trying to remember who this masked man could be from those she's heard in the past. Then, out of nowhere, Kirishima insults him. She accuses him of being weak for resorting to this kind of revenge if he is one of her past victims. She then pulls free from Ayama's grip and faces him directly, claiming that people like him, who are weak and helpless, deserve to be bullied and that it is natural. Without hesitation, she promises to uncover his identity once she's free. She chillingly threats to hunt him down. Ayama listens to every word, remaining silent. Ayama, filled with frustration, storms out of the room. In the hallway, his mind races. He realizes that breaking Kirishima isn't as easy as he thought, because deep down, he's scared of her. He feels even more ashamed knowing that even though she's chained up, he's still afraid of her. The memory of her calling him weak keeps playing in his head, and now he doesn't know what to do next. Then, something in the hallway catches Ayama's attention. Ayama notices a girl holding an electric chainsaw. She seems excited, admiring the chainsaw and calling it a beauty. Suddenly, she starts kissing the chainsaw. Ayama watches in disgust, quickly realizing that this girl is dangerous. While still kissing it, she notices Ayama. The girl's mood suddenly changes, and she threatens Ayama with the electric chainsaw. In a cold and stern tone, she demands to know if he's participating in the Captivity Game. Her intense stare stays on him, waiting for an answer, but Ayama is too scared to speak. Then, when she moves the chainsaw closer, Ayama panics and finally admits that he is a part of the game. The girl pulls the chainsaw away from Ayama and smiles. Now that she knows he's playing the game, she wonders if Ayama knows where to find food in this place. Meanwhile, in the room, Kirishima hears the voices coming from the hallway. She tries to figure out if the voice belongs to Ayama or Imamura and is determined to get it right. Ayama and the girl go to get food together. She enjoys her meal, finding it delicious even with everything going on in this crazy game. She notices Ayama isn't eating and playfully urges him to, joking that she's not paying for his meal. Ayama then wonders if she is also participating in the game, but she avoids answering. Instead, she becomes annoyed when he calls her ma'am, feeling too young for that title at only 24 years old. She introduces herself as Misaki Yoshino and confirms that she is also a participant in the game just like him. Ayama introduces himself in return and is happy to meet her. As she continues to eat, she notices Ayama still staring at the menu. Ayama mentions that it's hard to choose because there are so many interesting options. Ayama then flips to the back of the menu and finds out that captors can buy information about their captives. Misaki is also surprised by this information. Ayama laughs, realizing that the sneaky game doesn't reveal all the rules, leaving the captors to find them all on their own. Misaki suddenly gives Ayama a blank look, as if something is bothering her. She comments on how brave Ayama is for being here. Then Ayama starts flirting with her, saying that he's surprised that someone as cute as her is here. This makes Misaki blush, and she quickly changes the subject back to what Ayama plans to eat. Ayama finally decides on a Hamburg steak. A few minutes later, his food arrives. As Ayama begins eating, Misaki questions who he chose as his captive. Ayama pauses for a moment, then lies, saying he chose his high school teacher. While still lying, Ayama makes up a story about his high school teacher who attacked and took advantage of the girl he liked. He even hints that it was on the news and wonders if Misaki knows about it. She isn't sure, but she wonders if he is only here for revenge. Ayama calmly states that the timing is perfect and that his captive won't easily figure out his identity. Ayama asks about Misaki's captive as well, and she reveals it's her boss. She explains that 2 years ago, her boss blamed her for his mistake, which got her fired and led into depression. She took a low-paying part-time job and had to rely on welfare while looking for a new job. That boss really broke her and ruined her life. Then she comes back to her senses, realizing she shouldn't be oversharing to a high schooler, but Ayama reassures her and understands her feelings. Misaki appreciates him for listening. Then, her expression shifts to a chilling stare as she catches him in his earlier lie and wonders who he's really holding captive. She explains that while she gets his need for revenge, this game is for people that want to get back at those who are irrational, which makes his story sound ordinary. She then becomes frantic and quickly adds that it's just her intuition, and she isn't sure if she is right. Ayama forces a fake smile, thinking she might have figured him out, but he still doesn't want her to know the truth. He realizes she's a pain. Misaki, still dumbfounded, keeps staring at him, waiting for a response. Ayama keeps fake smiling, but Misaki misinterprets it as admiration, causing her to blush and feel nervous. She reminds him that she's still waiting for a response. Eyama is impressed by her sharpness, but lies again, saying his story is true and that his teacher is his captive. He plays with his food while confirming that the game is for those seeking revenge on irrational people, but the rules allow them to choose anyone up to 10 years older. He adds that besides having a grudge against his teacher, he wanted someone that will struggle to figure out his identity, and that's it. Misaki realizes she went too far and feels embarrassed for acting like a detective. Eyama believes that she shouldn't be because her insight is amazing. She blushes and appreciates the compliment. After finishing their meal, they go back to the hallway. Eyama wonders if she's going to her captive's room, but she decides not to go yet because she has things to buy first. Suddenly, she notices a hair on Eyama and pulls it off. Eyama thanks her, and then they go their separate ways. As they walk away, Misaki glances back with a secretive look, checking to make sure Eyama is gone. She goes over the story he told her about his high school teacher attacking a student, convinced he's lying. Pulling out the hair she plucked off Eyama, she wonders who the long hair belongs to. Then she strangely giggles to herself and realizes that she can't let her guard down around Eyama. Back in his room, Eyama notices that Misaki seems to be enjoying herself, even though she's a participant like him. This makes him realize he needs to have thicker skin for this game. He knows Kirishima will figure him out soon and wonders how Misaki handles everything so easily. As he figures out the TV, he remembers the rule that lets him observe Kirishima through the monitor. On the screen, he sees her still on her knees, chained, with her head down. Eyama laughs, realizing she's now in the same position he was in when she bullied and shoved him into the storehouse. Then Eyama notices something. He sees the same participant menu from the cafeteria in his room and realizes he can order from here too. As he looks through the menu, he wonders where they got such personal information and suspects it might be illegal, especially considering how cheap the prices are. Deciding to put this aside for now, he shifts his focus to a bigger problem, making sure Kirishima can't figure out who he is. To do that, he plans to create a completely new persona, changing the way he talks, his expression, transforming into a whole new him. He returns to the room where Kirishima is being held and stands over her, casually mentioning that it's been over 2 hours with slang, acting out his new persona. She keeps her head down and stays quiet. He acknowledges her strength but says she must be close to her limit. He then asks if she needs to use the restroom, trying to get a reaction. She sweats, clearly needing to go, but still doesn't respond. He points out that she arrived in the morning, so she probably needs to go to the bathroom. He reminds her that it costs to use it. He teases her about the low price of the bathroom at 1,000 yen, suggesting she probably can't afford it. He finds this amusing and wonders if she might actually wet her pants. Kirishima has had enough. She looks at him and mentions that he has gotten cocky and blurts out his name, Eyama. Behind the mask, Eyama's eyes widen in shock. He manages to stay calm and asks who this Eyama person is. She confidently points out that Eyama is his real name, hinting that she found out his identity. She threatens him, making it clear that if she wins this twisted game, she'll use the prize money to cover all the specialized treatments she's going to use, but Eyama will be forced to pay everything back on his own. She grins and lets him know that he will be the one to lose this game and will be trapped in a financial mess. She laughs hysterically, enjoying the fact that Eyama is in such a hopeless situation. Eyama snaps and brutally kicks her in the stomach, causing her to gasp in unbearable pain. He lets her know that if she really thinks he is Eyama, there's only 1 week left to make her guess, so she should think carefully. He also mentions that if she fails to guess correctly, she will be the one in financial hell, so she'd better not get it wrong. As he walks away, Eyama hears a weird sound coming from Kirishima. Because Eyama kicked her in the stomach, she lost control of her bladder and peed herself. Kirishima's face sweats from embarrassment and disbelief. Meanwhile, Eyama just stands there, staring at her and her mess. Then Eyama suddenly bursts into laughter as she is sitting in a pool of her own pee. Sweat drips down her face as she stares down, still in shock and disbelief. Then out of nowhere, Eyama pulls out his phone and starts snapping pictures, making sure she knows just how disgusting she is. When Eyama gets back to his room, he sits on his bed in frustration. He's stuck questioning if Kirishima actually figured him out or just said his name to mess with him. He wonders if he had more confidence, she wouldn't have suspected him, but now it feels like she's going to guess his name for sure. As he sweats and scratches his head, he tries to think of ways to make her believe it's not really him. In Harakawa's room, he watches Eyama on his monitor. He suddenly gets a call from Eyama. Eyama asks if he could take him shopping, and he agrees. They agreed to meet in the lobby so they can head out. As Eyama waits, a man suddenly bumps into him, startling him. Their eyes meet, and Eyama is able to mumble an apology, but the man just gives him a cold, stern stare. Filled with nervousness, Eyama can only let out an awkward laugh. The man then walks away, leaving Eyama shaken by how scary the interaction was. Suddenly, a hand lands on Eyama's shoulder, startling him so much that he screams. He quickly realizes it's just Harakawa, who looks confused by the reaction. He then wonders what's going on. Still frightened, Eyama wants Harakawa not to scare him like that again. Then Harakawa wonders if he is getting used to everything, but Eyama knows he's far from it. Harakawa compliments him, believing that he has a talent, but Eyama doesn't really know what he means by that. Harakawa believes Eyama has a split personality. Eyama looks at him confused and a little annoyed, but Harakawa doesn't believe he's wrong. As Eyama's supervisor, Harakawa explains that he's been watching him closely. He noticed that Eyama has acted both timid and calm, and believes he has learned to suppress his emotions because of the bullying. Eyama wonders when Harakawa has seen him calm, because he only acts calm because he has to. He nervously admits he hasn't stopped shaking since he got here, and because of all the bullying he's been through, he knows just how bad it feels. Then out of nowhere, Harakawa starts laughing, pointing out that despite everything, Eyama still managed to kick Kirishima in the stomach. He even admits he likes that side of Eyama. Eyama, clearly irritated, glares at him for laughing. Harakawa shifts the conversation, wondering what Eyama wants to buy from the store. Eyama mentions that he needs a towel and some cleaning supplies. Harakawa mentions that cleaning supplies can be borrowed for free, and captors get towels and other items for free also, but not the captives. Just then, something catches Eyama's attention. Eyama spots a cheerful Misaki walking by with a bag. Noticing her upbeat look mixed with a creepy smile, he wonders what she bought. Before he can think too much about it, Harakawa snaps him out of it, wondering if he needs to go to the store for anything else. But Eyama doesn't need anything more. Then, his expression quickly changes to an anxious glare, asking Harakawa if there is any way to watch other people's captivity rooms. Harakawa glances back and coldly confirms that it's possible, but for a price. Then they both ended up going to Harakawa's room. Once inside, Harakawa tells Eyama that he is the only one who uses this room so he can sit wherever. Harakawa then shows him the monitor where they can see everybody's captivity room, including Eyama's. He sternly warns Eyama not to speak to anyone about what he sees because they're allies. When asked what he wants to see, Eyama hesitates in nervousness. Harakawa assures him that everything is happening in real time, and after a moment of thought, he chose Misaki's room. On the monitor displaying Misaki's captivity room, chained and sitting on the floor, clearly distressed by the situation. He feels lost, wondering why this is happening to him. In the midst of his confusion, something suddenly grabs his attention. Misaki opens the door, half-naked, and stares at her captive. With a sudden smile on her face, she wonders if Tomiya has been a good boy, but Tomiya can only mumble her name in distress. In a flash, Misaki bashes him in the face. Meanwhile, Eyama watches all of this and is shocked to see the side of Misaki. He also is shocked that she isn't wearing a mask, meaning she's already been found out. While he's in pain, she wonders how it feels to be held captive by a woman like her. In anger, he warns her not to mess with him, and he won't forgive her. She smirks, impressed by his strong personality, and admits she likes that about him. Then, she pulls out a brass knuckle from her bag and smiles at it. Before he could speak, she punches him in the face. In her mind, she believes that he's the one who needs her forgiveness. In this place, she can do whatever she wants to him, and reminds him that he shouldn't have messed with her. Then she starts punching him again, hitting him several times. As Misaki goes mad, Eyama sees all of this. She keeps punching and insulting him. He is shocked and terrified, seeing the poor guy get brutally tortured. He realizes that Misaki is truly insane. She pauses briefly. Noticing he's almost passed out, she mentions the rules. He has to guess her name after a week to survive. With a smile, she chillingly admits that she'll likely kill him before then, and that she doesn't care about the 10 million yen punishment for breaking the rules. Tomiya manages to mutter about her being able to do this and get off scot-free. As she is digging in her bag, she reminds him that she won't be getting off scot-free because she would have to pay 10 million yen. She then mentions it'd be much better if he couldn't talk at all. She pulls out a pair of pliers, planning to use it to pull his teeth out. Tamiya stares, frozen in horror, his eyes locked on the weapon. Before she takes his teeth out, she chokes him with a collar. He desperately begs her to stop and tries to reason with her, but she doesn't care, and without hesitation, she whips him across the face. As she begins to pull out his teeth from the front, he screams at her to stop. She ends up pulling it out, and his cries of incredible pain fill the room. Tomiya, desperate and in pain, tries to apologize for everything he's done, but Misaki only gives him a sadistic smile as her eyes gleam with a dark satisfaction. She doesn't forgive him. Instead, she reminds him that humans have 28 teeth, and she still has 27 more to go. Eyama sits still, staring at the monitor as Tamiya screams in pain. Next to him, Harakawa watches with a twisted smile, seemingly enjoying the brutal scene. Suddenly, Eyama sees another guy on the other screen, and he recognizes him from when he bumped into him earlier. His name is Katsumata Seiji, and he's also a participant in the game. Eyama wonders who he wants to get revenge on, and Harakawa decides to switch the monitor to Katsumata's captivity room so they can watch. On the monitor, they see a woman chained on her knees with her head low. Then suddenly, Katsumata, wearing a face mask, opens the door. When she sees the mask, she gets frightened. Katsumata then confirms if she is Kuranashi Erika. He calmly lays out what he knows about her. She's the daughter of the Mitsubishi president, married to one of the board directors, and has an almost 2-year-old son. Kuranashi is too nervous to confirm anything. Katsumata explains that he doesn't plan to hurt her, but she just needs to stay here for 1 month. Kuranashi looks uneasy, totally lost about what's happening. Katsumata notices her confusion, saying it's normal to feel that way, and even apologizes for the situation, but he really needs her cooperation. He mentions that he's just here to win the 10 million yen. She mentions that if he is a friend of hers, she would have given him the money if he'd just asked. But he admits they aren't that close, adding that even if he took off his mask, she wouldn't recognize him, making her the perfect captive for him. Katsumata is a nice guy and makes it clear that he won't hold a grudge against her, so she can feel free to use all of the specialized offers. He plans to pay it back when he wins the 10 million yen. After a moment of hesitation, she nods, deciding to cooperate for the month. She suddenly asks to use the bathroom, and Katsumata shows her how she can choose the bathroom from the special options. Handing her the tablet and pen, he lets her know she can use them anytime to make requests. After he selects the bathroom option, the chains immediately release her wrists, and she heads there. Katsumata briefly wonders if she might try to escape now that she's without handcuffs, but he quickly remembers she's likely under constant surveillance. If she tried anything, the supervisors would step in to stop her. Kuranashi returns, and he handcuffs her again and mentions that he's going to get them some food. Just as he's about to leave, she wonders what to call him, but quickly brushes it off, telling her she can call him whatever she wants. With a playful smile, she decides on Shimigami because of his skull-like mask. Meanwhile, in Harakawa's room, they are still looking at the monitor. Then suddenly, Eyama snaps in a frightening way. His face is blank and his eyes widen, as if he is soulless. He states that both Misaki and Katsumata are scum. When Harakawa hears this, he creepily smiles from behind. Then, Eyama wonders if he could go home for the day. Harakawa agrees and lets him know that he'll drive him back. In the car, Harakawa wonders why he thinks all of the other participants are scum. He sees why he would say that about Misaki, but doesn't understand why Katsumata. Eyama then mentions that Katsumata isn't scum. Katsumata wants the 10 million yen badly that he is willing to imprison a kind woman. He notices that his captive is very short-sighted, so she won't last a month there and will end up turning against him. On the other hand, Eyama points out that Misaki's captive is a trash person that will hurt others to get ahead. At first, he thought he could understand where Misaki was coming from, but she is just turning this into something for her own sadistic pleasures. Harakawa laughs it off, noting that this situation is pretty tense, so he shouldn't judge them just yet. Then Eyama wonders if he has to come back to the game tomorrow, and Harakawa explains that he has to be there for at least 2 hours a day because he has to assist his captive. In the cafeteria, Katsumata wonders if he could sleep here, and his supervisor agrees. He then mentions that if there's nothing else to discuss, he'd like to eat alone. She understands and leaves. As she walks away, Katsumata looks at the menu, but suddenly, something startles him. To his surprise, it's Misaki. She admires his supervisor, calling her cute, and admits feeling jealous of not having someone like her. She complains about her own supervisor, pulling her eyes back to mimic his look. Then she wonders if there's a way to switch supervisors. Katsumata stays silent and looks back at the menu in irritation. Then, Misaki sits down right in front of him and starts ordering. She orders and casually offers to order something for him too. He bursts out in frustration, wanting her to not sit by him since he doesn't know her. But she ignores him. She introduces herself and assumes he's a participant too. Because Katsumata is annoyed, he hesitates, but eventually gives in and introduces himself too. He gives her a serious look, keeping his guard up, and questions what Misaki's goal is in talking to him. She interrupts his thoughts, wondering if he has met the other participant yet. Katsumata believes the other participant is a high school kid, and she seems surprised that he already knows Eyama. Katsumata recalls the moment he bumped into Eyama in the hallway. Because of that interaction, he believes that there is something wrong with Eyama. Misaki doesn't seem convinced, and instead casually mentions that she finds Eyama cute, and tells Katsumata that it wouldn't be weird if he found him cute as well. He figures Eyama must be her type. As he thinks it over, Katsumata feels like everybody here gives off bad vibes. He also believes that Misaki is the kind of person who acts nice just to get closer to someone. Just like everybody else, he plans to not let his guard down. Misaki questions why he is participating in this game. He brushes it off, remembering how the invitation just showed up in his mail, but she thinks he's lying because the game is only for special people. Katsumata, clearly irritated, gets up and makes it clear he doesn't owe her an explanation. Before he leaves, she tries to figure out where he's going, but he just says that he remembered something. As he walks away, frustration and anger rises in Misaki, as she realizes that it's hard to get information out of him. Then, unexpectedly, her expression quickly changes into a friendly one as she mentions wanting to meet his female captive. This makes Katsumata stop in his tracks, wondering how she knows about his captive. He then questions if she is trying to bait him for information. Misaki, caught off guard, is impressed by how quickly he caught on. Katsumata, still cautious, makes it clear that her attempts to get information from him won't work. He also wonders why she is so interested in getting information about him, since the game is supposed to be between each participant and their captive, so there's no reason for other participants to get involved. Misaki, with an innocent look, seems unsure about that. He then questions what she's trying to get at, but before she tells him, she urges him to sit down. Eventually, he gives in and sits. She starts by asking if he noticed the options on the back of the menu, and he acknowledges that he has. Misaki continues, explaining how she and Eyama discovered the menu options as well, and realized that there are secret rules participants have to find out on their own. She points out that this is Eyama's theory, but she agrees with him. Suddenly, she throws in a strange question, wondering if Katsumata also feels like this game is too one-sided. The question catches him off guard. She finds it odd that the game creator insists it's just a game, but participants being able to is unfair. The unknown rules in the back of the menu are there to let participants find it out on their own. She also finds it odd that participants can talk to each other. Katsumata wonders what she is trying to say. Misaki believes that this game isn't really meant to be participants against their captives. Back in the car, Eyama shares his theory with Harakawa, believing the game is really participants versus each other and not versus their captives. Eyama goes on, noting how strange it is that their captives are unaware of these hidden rules. The more he thinks about it, the more he starts to question whether the real goal of the game is for the participants to fight one another. Harakawa comes clean and admits that even if he tried, he couldn't get a lie past Eyama. He admits that he doesn't know anything and figures that this is the first time the game is being held, and claims he has no way of contacting whoever is running the game, which makes him feel uneasy about the whole thing. With a sly expression, he mentions that's all he can say since he doesn't know much. In the hallway, Katsumata reflects on earlier, thinking that a participant battle seems unlikely. Misaki agrees, feeling like this whole game is impossible and has no idea what the future holds. Feeling iffy, he believes that if the participant battle is true, Misaki sharing information will harm her. She suddenly laughs and admits he's really smart, while he is confused by how unpredictable she is. When Eyama gets back home, his mother greets him. While doing laundry, she mentions that she bought him some new clothes because his old ones are torn. She scolds him for always getting dirty and asks him to keep them clean. Eyama thanks her but knows he'll probably get them dirty again. Sitting on his bed, he questions why he's doing all of this for. Revenge? Or maybe just for fun. He realizes that he wasn't able to do anything anyways. He feels that he's holding back because he doesn't want to become a monster like the other participants. Finally, he decides that all he really needs is for Kirishima to apologize to him for everything she's done. After dropping Eyama home, Harakawa goes to the park and watches a little boy play soccer. He then looks up at the sky, lost in thought. While gazing at the clouds, a dark feeling creeps over him. Eyama is going to end up killing Kirishima. Back in the dim captivity room, Kirishima lies on her back, still chained. Pain and anger flood her thoughts as she curses under her breath. Filled with rage, she promises to kill Eyama. At home, Eyama's mom notices him heading out. He lies, saying he's going to do homework with a friend and will be back late. In his mind, he's fully focused, determined to make Kirishima apologize, no matter how long it takes. Eyama walks up to Harakawa's car, with him already there. They leave for day 2 of the game. When they get back to the building, Eyama asks to borrow the cleaning supplies because he wants to clean up the mess where Kirishima peed. Eyama takes the cleaning supplies to his room and heads to the bathroom to fill the bucket. He feels bad for Kirishima, realizing that since he left yesterday without cleaning up the pee, the captivity room probably smells awful. Then, he prepares himself to head back into the captivity room. In the room, he sees Kirishima on her knees, with her head down. Immediately, the smell of pee hits him hard. Covering his nose, he thinks the smell is really strong, and can't believe she hasn't gone mad yet. She stays silent and keeps her head down. Eyama then shows her the towel and bucket he brought, questioning if she can move because she'll be cleaning up this mess herself. Kirishima still doesn't answer him. He notices this and yells at her, demanding a response, and when that doesn't work, he threatens to kick her again. She still doesn't budge. Still in the building, Harakawa steps into a room and greets everyone in there with a smile. The man in the room greets Harakawa back. His name is Naimura, and he is Misaki's supervisor. The woman's name is Nagamine, and she is Katsumata's supervisor. Nimura starts talking about how crazy Misaki is, describing how yesterday he watched her on the monitor pull the teeth out of her captive. Harakawa, trying to lighten the mood, makes a joke about him not needing to buy toothpaste anymore. Then, out of nowhere, Nimura pulls out an envelope, showing Harakawa that they got another assignment from their boss. The supervisors read the letter. Harakawa understands and mentions that it seems Eyama's theory is correct. While sitting there, lost in thought, Harakawa wonders about their boss's real goal and what could be so fun about a game that they read about in the letter. His face grows stern as he thinks harder. Suddenly, Nimura's expression turns cold. His eyes darken with a chilling intensity as he questions if they really believe this game will last the full month. Nimura starts explaining a story. There was this experiment called the Stanford Prison Experiment. In it, students were split into 2 groups, prison officers and prisoners. The point was to see what would happen. The officers quickly started handing out harsh punishments. Their punishments grew harsher, and eventually the experiment had to be stopped. It only lasted 6 days because it didn't take long for the officers to abuse their power. Nagamine feels anxious, worried that their boss might try to restart the experiment, but Nimura doesn't believe that's the case. He tells her that this game is much more cruel. He warns them not to dig too deep, reminding them to stay quiet and follow orders. Meanwhile, Harakawa stares at the envelope, and a creepy smile spreads across his face in excitement. Back in the captivity room, Eyama is still yelling at her to answer him. He then grabs her face, wondering if she is asleep. He keeps shouting and reminds her that she needs to clean up the mess. He warns her that she'll die if she doesn't breathe. When that doesn't work, he stares at her in disbelief. He didn't want to kill her. He just wanted Kirishima to apologize. Then an idea hits him. He decides to check her heartbeat. As Eyama reaches to check, Kirishima's eyes snap open from her fake sleep, filled with intense rage. In a swift moment, she bites down hard on his pinky finger. Eyama's eyes widen in shock, still trying to process what just happened. Eyama lets out a blood-curdling scream as Kirishima savagely bites off his pinky finger. His screams grow louder when he sees blood gushing from his hand. The horrifying sight of his missing pinky sends him into a panic. His mind is consumed by the pain of his missing finger. In a state of pain and disbelief, he tries to understand why this is happening to him. Kirishima glares at Eyama as she spits out his severed pinky. In a dark grin, she makes sure Eyama knows that he is still weak. Eyama, still on his hands and knees, is too consumed by the pain to hear her. Still crying, he only manages to wonder why he is in this situation. Despite the pain, Eyama manages to get up and clutch on his hand to try and stop the bleeding. His bloodshot and veiny eyes look like they might burst from the excruciating pain and anger. He struggles to remember why he is here. Was it for revenge or wanted her to feel regret? He decides it's not either of those. He finally remembers why he is here, to abandon his old self and to change. As he reaches to pull off his mask, he realizes the Eyama who was bullied by Kirishima is gone. With his injured hand gripping the mask, he understands there's no need to hide his identity anymore. As the mask falls to the wet floor, Eyama says goodbye to his old self. He lifts his arm up and greets Kirishima. He flips his hair out of his face, revealing a chilling smile. Kirishima's heart races as she recognizes him, barely able to say his name. She didn't think it would actually be him. He gets on his knees to her level. Calmly, he encourages her to give her answer when it's time to guess. Suddenly, his demeanor shifts. His stare is cold and his face darkens. Kirishima can only sweat in fear. Then, unexpectedly, Eyama gives her a warm smile and thanks her. He lets her know that because of her, he was able to change himself. He reaches out to touch her face, like he's about to caress it, while Kirishima stares at him completely confused about what's happening. In a swift and another unexpected move, he slams her face into the ground with a disturbingly calm look. The impact makes her gasp in excruciating pain. She cries out in agony, finally getting a glimpse of what Eyama felt. He then yanks her up by the arms. His dark stare locks onto her as he realizes that he is wrong. As he grips her pinky finger, he mentions that she is right about what she says about him. Then, he breaks her finger without hesitation, showing little remorse. Her body freezes from the shock as the intense pain causes her eyes to pop with veins before she lets out a shriek. In that moment, Eyama admits that she's right. He was weak. As she cries out on the floor in agony, Eyama walks away. Still in intense pain, she manages to look at him in a way that gets under his skin. He feels like he hasn't broken her completely yet, and he wants to do it badly. As he walks to get his finger, he wonders how he should break her strong will. He looks at his bloody finger strangely, convinced that this is a permanent injury. Then, without looking back, he leaves. In Eyama's bathroom, he feels unsatisfied with the extent of his revenge because he believes the bullying and humiliation he received was greater. In his mind, what he did was barely enough because she still looks at him the same as always. He promises to make her regret it deeply. Suddenly, with a chillingly calm expression, he wonders if it would be more interesting if he kills her. In the hallway, Misaki sits talking about her captive. She thinks he's just an ant and wishes she had someone younger and cuter to have fun with. Her thoughts shift to Eyama, wanting to have fun with someone like him. Just then, Eyama walks to her, and once she sees him, she lets out a scream because she didn't recognize him right away. When he confirms he's Eyama, she notices how he looks like a different person, and then she points out his injured hand. He brushes it off, mentioning he got injured, and then he sits down next to her, wondering what she is doing. Misaki notes again that something about him seems different, though he just shrugs, figuring it must be from taking a shower. Then, without warning, she slides her hand onto his thigh. With a tempting look, she wonders if he came here because he wanted to see her, and he confirms. He mentions wanting to talk, hoping she has some time. Misaki has. Then, in a seductive way, she mentions that her bedroom is big enough for two. With a low grin, Eyama agrees to go with her. While all that happened, Harakawa was sleeping and woke up to a phone call from Eyama. With blood on Eyama's hand, he coldly apologizes for going against the rules and killing a captive. Shock and terror washes over Harakawa's face as he hears this news. Harakawa bursts into the captivity room, where he finds Eyama as well. Both Eyama and Misaki are drenched in blood. Harakawa wonders if the corpse is Tomiya, and Misaki confirms it, saying that he is just dead meat now. Harakawa notices the blood on Eyama's hand and wonders if it is Tomiya's blood, but Eyama reveals that it is his own blood and takes off his glove to show Harakawa that his pinky finger is gone. Harakawa is shocked and tells Eyama to see a doctor or risk getting an infection. Misaki asks what will happen to her since she is disqualified, and Harakawa explains that her supervisor, Nimura, will contact her so she can leave. Eyama ends up going to the doctor, and he scolds Eyama for not coming to get treated earlier, and he doesn't know whether it will grow back to normal. Eyama explains that he didn't come get treated earlier because he wanted to get rid of his old self. Meanwhile, Nimura and Harakawa are in the control room reviewing the video of Eyama and Misaki. Harakawa wonders what exactly happened in the captivity room, and he wants to see the video. Nimura agrees to show him, but he believes he will regret it. Nimura thinks both Eyama and Misaki are crazy. Nimura explains that Eyama and Misaki went to her room and messed around for a while, but during that, Eyama was not focused on her at all. He was looking at Misaki's captivity room. Misaki notices his staring and wonders if Eyama would want to go in there together. Once inside, they see Tomiya lying there. Misaki tells Eyama that he can do whatever he wants to him, but not kill him. She still has something she wants to do with him. Then, Eyama suggests they play a game called the bone-crushing game. He explains that the game was started by a noble family in the 16th century. The rules were simple. They would take a slave and they would take turns beating him. During the beating, the slave would beg for help, and it would continue until "help me" turned into "kill me." The person who got the slave to say "kill me" won. As Harakawa watches, he wonders if that's really Eyama. Harakawa knew this day would come, but he didn't expect Eyama to change so much within just 2 days. Eyama shows Misaki how it's done and smashes Tomiya's head in with a hammer. This turns on Misaki. The two keep watching them brutally beat Tomiya, and Harakawa laughs, seemingly enjoying this. Nimura wonders why he is laughing, and in a creepy way, Harakawa mentions that he didn't know he was laughing. Back in the room, Tomiya desperately begs for help. But Eyama just smiles, thinking Tomiya still has a strong will to live, and decides to try something new. He opens a jar with a poisonous snake and lets it attack Tomiya. As the snake bites him, Eyama watches with a dark grin and believes that this game is fun. Misaki sees what's happening and grabs a screwdriver, sarcastically saying she'll save Tomiya from the snake. Tomiya begs for her not to stab him, but she stabs both the snake and him, piercing the snake to his chest. His scream fills the room, raw and full of pain. As Eyama watches, he remembers being in a similar situation, feeling helpless and realizing no one was coming to save him. Angrily, he says that when he was brutally bullied, he had no savior and no one came to help him. As Eyama lifts the hammer, he realizes that this is why he's going to take matters into his own hands. With one powerful swing, he smashes Tomiya's head in, which kills him instantly. Back on the monitor, Nimura explains that even though Tomiya died, they kept playing with his corpse until they got bored. He also points out that even until the end, Tomiya never said "kill me," Nimura which means mentions the game Misaki is ended in a disqualified and wonders what they should do with Eyama since he helped her kill him. Harakawa believes that Eyama won't get disqualified because he didn't break any rules, and Nimura agrees. Meanwhile, Eyama is in his room taking a bath. He reflects on how much fun he had with Tomiya and wonders what it would be like if it were Kirishima instead, and imagines what sounds she would make. In the hallway, Nimura knocks on Misaki's room wanting to talk to her. When she opens it, she is wet and wearing a towel. When he comes in, she wonders what will happen to her, and Nimura explains that she will be disqualified from the game, but he will help her get a job so she can repay her debt. She complains that she just killed someone and worries about the police. Nimura reassures her, saying there's no need to worry about them. She thinks about how hard it would be to escape quietly and knows that facing Nimura would be a problem. He laughs, challenging her to try him. Then he casually asks if he can use her bathroom. As Nimura opens the door, he is met with a gruesome scene. Tomiya's lifeless body lies in the tub, with his blood splattered everywhere. Meanwhile, in Katsumata's captivity room, he explains a story about his daughter, who is currently hospitalized after a serious accident. This is why he is playing this game. A few years ago, Katsumata had a happy family, and they were very close, until his daughter got sexually assaulted by men in a park. Those men also attacked her with the intention of killing her. But before they could do that, a boy jumped in and saved her. After that incident, Katsumata and his wife did everything they could to care for their daughter, and he tried to find a better job. But before long, his wife left him. Since then, his days have been hell. His daughter lost her sanity while in the hospital, and his job search went nowhere. That is when he received an invitation to join the Captivity Game. After sharing his story with Kuranashi, he decides to leave, thinking anything more would only bore her. Just before he walks away, she makes sure he knows that she will cooperate with him. In the hospital, Katsumata sits beside his daughter. Suddenly, she screams in horror. The trauma from the park floods back to her. Panic fills the room as he holds her hand tightly, trying to comfort her. He gently tells her that everything will be all right, until she begins to calm down. After the visit, Harakawa returns to Nagamine. Before they leave, he explains to her that he has another reason for wanting the 10 million yen. The men who sexually assaulted his daughter still haven't been caught. With anger and determination in his eyes, he promises to use the money to find those men and kill them. In Eyama's captivity room, Kirishima cries out in pain because of her broken finger. Despite her suffering, she is hopeful because she now knows Eyama's identity. With a manic and dark smile, she vows that he will lose and she'll be able to go home. Suddenly, Eyama peeks into the room with an unsettling and creepy presence. When she spots him, she points out that since she knows his name, he will lose. But Eyama doesn't respond. Instead, he remembers how fun it was to kill Tomiya. With a frantic look, he wonders if killing Kirishima would be more fun.